People say we autistics see things in black and white. Maybe that is true. We certainly don't understand many of the things that are done by neurotypical people. And this is another one of those times. Why are things that seem a good idea not supported by neurotypical people, even though they are the ones who created and approved of it, but they won't support it? In this episode, we ask, why social care? Social care. At the dawn of time, in the beginning when the world was wild, human beings noticed that it was easier to live in groups to share the load of surviving. Many hands make life easier, and some people were strong and some people were clever. And together, these little societies grew. Using all the skills of the community so that everyone benefited made life fairer and easier for everyone in the group. The strong didn't get all the food and the clever didn't trick people out of their food. It was a balance, a role found for all, no matter their ability, and a form of social care was born. As the hunter and gatherer grew older, their wisdom and experience were sought after by the young. The older members passed on what they knew, and for that knowledge, the older members were respected and supported in their later years by the whole group. They are seen as still contributing to society, modern society. Mahatma Gandhi is quoted as saying, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members." This is a widely known quote, which is often used when people talk about how good or bad countries might be. A country that supports all the people to ensure there is fairness, that all needs are met and none are denied by their standing in society. A country that displays these traits would be considered to be the definition of a good working society. Here in the UK, we are not quite there yet. Social care today. Social care in our culture has become a separate idea to the day-to-day running of people's lives. It's something someone else does. It wasn't always like this. In the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, social care was part of daily life. In those days, life was hard for everyone. Never mind if you had a disability or not. People were categorized as lame, crippled, natural fools, idiots, innocents, but they had a place in society. Some vulnerable people were supported by family and friends. Even well-off people would donate to the parish to support the less advantaged. They were found jobs and supported by people around them. If needed, the courts of the time would appoint a keeper, a person of the parish to keep an eye on them and ensure they were looked after. Disabled people would regularly marry non-disabled people. The disabled were not hidden away in those days. Not all vulnerable people had someone to look out for them. Some needed to turn to begging. It wasn't a great time for everyone, but disabled people were seen as part of the community. Attitudes started to change at the start of the 19th century. Disabled people were sent away from the towns and cities. Asylums were built, and the vulnerable disappeared into them. This was a mixed bag time for the vulnerable of this country. Some good was done in the name of schools being set up to give skills to some types of disabilities. Then came the First World War and Second World War. With so many people returning from war disabled, attitudes needed to change. These disabled were heroes, not degenerates, as people had started to see the disabled as bringing their misfortune on themselves. After the war, you couldn't be sure how that person had become disabled, and attitudes softened towards the vulnerable. War was also creating a labour shortage, and every hand was needed. In the Second World War, for example, attitudes were changing again. Due to labour shortage, posters, newspaper campaigns with the slogans "Cripples can do vital war work" started to appear. Disabled people were part of society again, and people saw they could be useful. After the war, with many people being made disabled by the bloodshed, in 1944, the first Disability Act promised to ensure employment was available for everyone. Things were looking up. People cared again about the most vulnerable and saw their worth. Making society inclusive for disabled people became the driving factor for many in society for a few years. At the end of the 20th century, the birth of individualism had begun, and the drive for ever greater profits saw the start of the downturn for the most vulnerable in our society. To counter this downturn, in the 1970s and 80s, disabled and able-bodied people protested in the streets for better rights, and the first Equality Act was created, and things started to get better for vulnerable people again. Now in the 21st century, something strange has happened. We appear to have stopped caring as a society. Oh, we still care for animals and children. More money each year in the UK is given to charities to support animals than is raised to support vulnerable people. The argument that is used to support money going to animals is mostly this: animals can't help themselves and it's humans that put them in harm's way. Maybe it's because I'm autistic, or maybe it's because I've seen with my own eyes what humans do to the vulnerable who can't help themselves and have been put in this harmful situation by human society. I find the argument that animals need more support than people disappointing. What is the solution? Social care should be seen with respect. Social care workers should be treated with respect. They should be paid and trained to the highest, in the same way our nurses and doctors are. This would raise their profile in the community. Social care should come under the banner of the NHS. It should not be a private enterprise where the owners of that business can decide how much of the taxpayers' money they spend on care and how much they will keep for themselves. Schools should teach that vulnerability could happen to anyone at any time and create respect for those who work in social care, helping to create social care as an employment option. If you are a good social care worker and care about your work, the job is hard. It is not sitting around drinking tea with people. You have a responsibility for the people in your care. You make a difference to their lives. You look out for them and they look forward to seeing you. As a social care or medical worker, you are at the front of society. You are society. Without you and our belief that looking after everyone is the correct thing to do, we would just be a big gang fighting each other to take what we want. Social care needs a rethink on the training given before anyone can start to work. We need to trust our carers because bad ones cause so much harm to the vulnerable and to the reputation of the industry, meaning donations to charities goes down. Let's look at that quote again. The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. We need to teach people that the word vulnerable means. It's not just the disabled, it's older people, it's ill people, it's people like you. If we live long enough, we will all be vulnerable one day, be it by time or accident. The day will come when we all need help from someone stronger. We need to learn that spending money on social care is what society is all about. As long as we as a society break even, profit is not needed. I have never heard of anyone saying their last words, "I had a terrible life, but at least the government made a profit." Why? I have to ask because I don't understand. When this issue affects us all, the neurotypicals in charge do nothing. Am I missing something? I am autistic. Why has social care reforms not happened? Why has a tax solely for social care not been raised? Why do we do nothing? Social care affects us all. One day we will all be vulnerable. Let's all do something about it now while we can and create a better society. Thanks for listening.